Good morning. It's the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. And I'm Doug Rice. Oh, yeah, baby. I didn't wake up. 7 a.m. That's right. Get up. Doug Rice. That's me. Good morning. How you doing? How you doing, folks? Monday morning. What holiday have they named this one? Columbus Day. Okay. As the continuation of Europeanized ideation spread itself across the globe. Dear God. And what are they doing today? Boy, let me tell you. Are you looking at the news? You know, not enough of us do. Not enough of us look at the news and take in all that's being done all around us. I know they got your attention now. Oh, I know they got your attention now, ladies and germs. Yes, it appears the Palestinians have bitten off quite a bit. And I believe this morning the Israeli government said they really haven't even responded. They haven't even given the full brunt of their response to this action. One that was, you have to understand, it was detailed, thought out. The if-thens have been calculated. I'm pretty sure they're anticipating an Israeli response the likes of which they've never seen. But here's what's happening. I want to know what will Israelis do about Iran and Iraq and these other places that surround them that most certainly contributed to the whole melee. And dear God, I can't believe I watched people in a rave, getting gunned down, bombed, shot, stabbed. The folks that were at the rave in Israeli, 230 people. 230 people at a rave. Just kind of just enjoying themselves, I guess, in Israel. As Israelis do, I guess, whatever you call them, right? What a wake-up call for these folks. What a wake-up call that most certainly the Palestinians are getting. Look, as much as I disdain the presence of falsehood in Jerusalem, as much as I acknowledge the fact that those are occupiers, those are not Israeli natives, they are not of Israel, they claim Israel, as much as I understand that. Trust and believe, folks. The one thing these folks know how to do is get out with the get out. So, having taken no sides in this conflagration, understanding the players, having lived through the conflict of what they call the Middle East my entire existence, I tell them to carry on. It's all just one long continuation of history and prophecy involving, and let's say it, folks, this is all about Negroes. Yeah, this is all about maintaining that center mass in the place where Negroes belong. It's about them holding on to what they worked so hard to steal from us. And that's what this is about, and the Palestinians are not innocent in this. No, I'm not going to cheer on the Palestinians against the Israelis as if they were not complicit in our enslavement. No, the Palestinians were happy to see Negroes go, happy to see Israel go. As the rest of those who occupied that which they call Africa after the sale of God's chosen people scattered across the globe, particularly in the Americas. I don't feel sorry for any one of them. As the white man, the European, puts his foot up their goddamned asses. Yeah, Let them have it. Remember, folks, they all conspired. Now they're up in arms. They're in their feelings. What they're feeling is prophecy approaching. What they're feeling is the end of the Gentile nations. And however it comes about, I say, let it come. Let God's will be done. But I in no way want to associate any side against another. I am observing the events, and all parties are guilty in Negroes' eyes. And so I don't concern myself regarding their demise. And good morning. 7:06 in the morning on the 9th of October, 2023. My name is Doug Rice. Thanks for coming in, checking me. Here's the deal. Jesus Christ, Yeshua, that's the Europeanized version of the Messiah. Today we are going to talk about how Jesus Christ became white. I mean, how did this happen? And it plays into yesterday's 2-hour plus covering of the Balfour Declaration, because setting the precedent for these Ashkenazi European converts claiming to be Israel, occupying Negro position. In order for that to come to fruition, first the foundation had to be laid and certain games had to be played in order to create a white Messiah. And that white Messiah had to be accepted beyond all doubt before the rest of the story could be played out. And so today we are going to examine exactly how Jesus Christ, Yeshua, became white. And let's examine that when Jesus Christ became white, that is also when he became Jesus Christ. Shall I say that again? When Yeshua, the Son of Almighty God, became white, that is when the name transformed and transfigured into this Roman, Greco-Roman cacophony that they want to claim is Jesus Christ. An identity theft has been created within the maelstrom of all that's related to this nonsense. But we're going to look into some facts, some proof. This publication is brought to you by Aylmer Von Fleischer. I love when the proof comes from their own. It's almost like we all should have known. You know. All right, so this book is available on Amazon. It's where I got it. And just to give you a heads up of how this actually looks when I do it, just so you guys can see. Here, of course, is the cover. You know, I'll take you behind the scenes. And the cover, and we got just a few chapters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 chapters. How Jesus became white, the coins of Justinian II, shroud of Turin, fake or real. Luke chapter 23, Mark chapter 15, Matthew chapter 27, John chapter 19, John chapter 20, John chapter 11. Michelangelo, oh boy, 1475 to 1564, Caesar Borgia, I know I say bourgeois. Michelangelo's gay lover, who became the face of what they consider the Christ. So, let's talk about this. Let's do it. All right, so, and I want to jump to the first chapter, but they go through some pretty good proof here. They take a while to get to chapter 1, I will tell you that. But they go through some proof here. We're going to cover it directly. I'm going to just go back here. So, oh, darn, they're not going to let me do that, are they? These turkeys. Well, I'll just read it like that. In the black Hebrews and the black Christ, this gentleman, I gave enough evidence to prove that the ancient Hebrews were blacks. I also touched on the racial identity of Jesus Christ and why his image has been changed from black to white. This is very important. I will not dwell too much on the fact that the ancient Hebrews were black, but on the process by which the ethnic and racial identity of the historical Jesus Christ was changed from black to white. And again, he calls the Messiah Jesus Christ. Most of you call him Yeshua. For me, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. I believe the tonality, the vibrational inculcation of Jesus' name, Yeshua's name. I mean, if you mean the Son of the Most High, you could probably say cucumber. So I believe it's intent. In different languages, the name Jesus is spoken in different dialects in different ways. And it does not indicate the Son of God in any way. So I will not parry too much on the name and the pronunciation. I just want to get to the education. It is a fact that blacks are the original human race on earth. It is a fact that dark-skinned people, he says blacks, I try not to use race, these race-confined, defined nomenclature, but okay. It is possible, therefore, to find evidence of the black presence in every part of the world. Even in countries where blacks do not appear to be the dominant race, there are still memories of their original presence in the oral history of the current inhabitants. This is evident in places like New Zealand, Japan, Taiwan, and of course the Americas. The Near East and Greece is no exception. In ancient times, territories such as present-day Iran, Iraq, Syria, Israel, Saudi Arabia, dominated by black-skinned people, dark-skinned people. When he says blacks, he does not mean a confluency of blacks as if they are all a singularity of one individual nation. He means blacks in the manner that the skin tone of melanated people, that specificity of melanin, has them as dark-skinned people. I want that made clear. I mentioned in the Black Hebrews and the Black Christ about the various invasions by foreigners, such as the Greeks and the Romans of ancient Israel, and how the Israelites were violently removed from their lands and foreigners brought in to replace them. I also mentioned the Essenes, who were the early Christians. They were mostly blacks, and many of them fled for their lives with the brutal invasion of their homelands. Many of the early black Christians in Rome were martyred in the most brutal fashion by the Roman emperors. The Romans worshipped pagan deities and believed that their emperors were gods on earth. And where did they get that notion? Where did the Romans get the notion that their emperors were gods on earth? Well, they got that from the Egyptians, because the Greeks and the Romans, nothing but thieves, usurpers, like what appear to be their binary cousins of Ashkenazi imposters. Thieves, imposters, taking the identity and practices of other nations, particularly dark-skinned nations, and making those practices theirs, trying to take ownership of that which is not theirs to own. And they are vile about it. The possession with which they possess that which they did not invent is such an offense. It truly is. I think of Steve Scalise, this repugnant Republican who compares himself to a soft David Duke. I think of these types of Europeanized, idolized creatures, cretins, who somehow lay into this false notion that Europeanized invention is the seat of civilization. They were living in goddamned caves. They were fucking their animals. They didn't have names. That's what Europeans were. Before the Moors discovered them, brought them out of caves, put clothes on these hairy animalistic individuals, and educated them to their own peril. That's what we stare at when we look in the eyes of our oppressors, these beings that claim themselves superior, who descend from what appear to be not humans. And that's just a fact. Okay, let's go. They consider the Christian God as usurping the role of their emperors. Because of this and other reasons, the early Christians, the vast majority of whom were blacks, were considered to be dissidents and dealt with in the characteristic Roman fashion. The Roman emperors Nero, Decius, Valerian, and Diocletian are known for their vicious persecution of the early blacks and Christians. Remember, folks, they've always hated black people. They've always hated Negroes. The Essenes, the writers of the Dead Sea Scrolls, are famous for their frescoes and paintings in the catacombs of Rome, where they buried their dead and met in secret. Being of a religious order, their paintings were mostly of biblical characters like Adam and Eve, Noah and Isaac, as well as Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and his disciples. The early Christians often portrayed these characters as black. Some of these paintings have even been restored by the Italians and can be seen today. The whites were not Christians at first. The whites were not Christians at first. Do you hear that? They persecuted and killed Christians. It was not until the conversion of the Emperor Constantine that Christianity slowly began to make some positive inroads into the religious lives of the Romans. Now this, my friends, is a fresco of Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and his disciples in the catacomb of Domitilla. Let me see if I can. I can't get to the meat of it. Oh well. Trying to see if I could get it a little bit bigger, but you can't. But that's it. And I can tell you without doubt, they're not Europeans that are being painted. They're not Europeans being depicted. Those are Negroes, if you will. Those are brothers and sisters. You know. There are more than 50 catacombs dating from the 2nd and 3rd centuries in Rome. Ordinary Christians and the early Christians martyrs murdered during the persecutions of the Roman emperors Decius, Valerian, and Diocletian were buried in these catacombs. Catacomb of Camaldilla. The earliest images of Jesus Christ were black. But as more and more people adopted Christianity, the racial identity began to change. We can see as it begins. Image of a bearded Jesus, that was from the 4th century, as we can see. That's not a brother. We know that. And the earliest images in the catacombs displayed mostly black features. However, when the white Romans and others later adopted Christianity and joined the ranks of the black Christians, frescoes and other images of Jesus Christ and his disciples began to take on non-black features. This was because the white Christians imagined Jesus Christ, Yeshua, who lived a long time ago, as themselves. They wanted to feel they were part of Christian history. Racism also played a part. Here we see the alleged image of St. John in the Santa Telca catacomb. And I got to tell you, folks, what this does is dovetail in today's events, in that Europeanized and converted Jews who claim to be the original Hebrews now occupy the land where dark-skinned apostles once roamed. And what's interesting is they have the tenacity, the temerity, the gonads to claim personage to individuals who are clearly black in color. They are not white. And here we have the proof in history that racism also played a part in usurping and taking from the people their true identity. Who are these creatures that surround us, that smile in our goddamned faces and claim to be our friends? But in actuality, they descend from individuals who took a long time to pretend to be us. Okay, let's move on. This is an alleged image of that St. John in Talcacoca. Let's move on. An alleged image of St. Paul, also from the Santa Tecla catacombs. Such images have influenced later depictions of Jesus Christ and his followers. An alleged St. Andrew in the Tecla catacombs. Now we look there at the bottom. I can't scroll in on it, but very dark-skinned people. I'm sure they'll come to that. Curiously, in the same Santa Tecla catacomb are alleged images of St. Peter and Paul. They are more dark-skinned. Let's take a look. So this is supposedly someone that descends from Hebrews, and this, an older depiction, shows those same relationary individuals as dark-skinned. Folks, they have stolen our identity and have done everything to make themselves us. And let's not forget the association of white skin with leprosy, with disease. How dare these creatures? And they wonder why their end is upon them now. We see the conflicting racial hues of Yeshua and his disciples even so long ago. There is a clear and consistent imagery of Yeshua and his disciples as being black, even with the occasional frescoes of them being non-black. The St. Tecla catacomb was discovered in the 1950s. In 2010, the world media came out with the news of the discovery of the catacomb of St. Tecla, found beneath the streets of Rome under an 8-story building. The images found included 4th century paintings of the apostles Peter, Paul, Andrew, and John. The images came to light when lasers were used to burn off calcium carbonate that had covered the images for centuries. The Vatican was responsible for maintaining the catacomb, which it helped restore. Jesus, Yeshua, is believed to have died between 30 and 33 AD. Some say between 29 and 36 AD. The Tecla catacomb is believed to have been built by the noblemen at the time Rome was abandoning paganism for Christianity. It has been suggested that this matron, must have been very rich, considering the richness use of the colors used in creating the images black, green, yellow, and ochre in the burial chamber. The early Christians in Rome often desired to bury their dead near the graves of Christian martyrs. Some wealthy believers in Christianity had their tombs decorated with Christian imagery and biblical characters. The noblewoman's burial chamber in the catacombs of St. Tecla or Tecla depicts biblical figures, Yeshua, the Good Shepherd, as is depicted on the ceilings of the burial chamber. The ceiling's 4 corners show the 4 apostles, namely Peter, Andrew, Paul, and John. In the burial chamber, too, one can find other frescoes. Abraham about to sacrifice Isaac, Daniel in the lion's den, and the 3 wise men bringing Jesus Christ, Yeshua, gifts. There's also a large painting of the noble woman. Her dressing and hairstyle proves she was an important figure. And the reasons that I've touched on the catacombs is to show that at the whim of patrons, racial images can be changed. In this case, from black to white. One of the major reasons why the image of Jesus Christ or Yeshua was changed from black to white was because of the rise of white supremacy in Europe and across the world, and the demise of the black race. Whites were heavily involved in the destruction of many black civilizations, like the Indus, ancient Egyptian, and Hebrew civilizations. Why then, they asked themselves, did they need to portray many ancient heroes and heroines as blacks? That they reckoned was self-defeating. And so when white people finally adopted Christianity, they gradually but effectively changed the images and other artifacts of Jesus Christ and other biblical characters from black to white. Yes! So this is a practice with these beings. This is a practice. So we have the Romans replacing black Jews, and we have the Ashkenazi Europeans later replacing Jews themselves, or black, I would suppose, as it's just a continuation. It almost seems like a two-step folding of replacement that started during the time of Yeshua and then picked up even more momentum during the Dark Ages, when I believe these pale beings were infused into European society. And at that point, it was nearly complete. All they needed at that point was around the 1600s, 1600s to come, and then the Rothschilds. After the adaptation of Judaism by King Bulon, all of this adventurous mess simply just culminated into what we have today, which is white society on the planet claiming a place they have no place to claim. Very, very interesting. And now it appears they're all going insane. Interesting how it's playing out, isn't it? Let's continue. Whites themselves were not the original Christians, as has already been pointed out. Most of us know how they severely persecuted the early Christians. They brutally executed them and threw them to lions and other wild animals to devour in their arenas for their viewing pleasures. The same way they have Negroes playing football for their viewing pleasures. Yes, many of the early Christians left behind frescoes and other images in the catacombs of Rome that indicated that the historical Christ, or Yeshua, was black. Many Hebrews, Jews, lived in Rome because of the various invasions of their homelands and the subsequent deportations and dispersal it caused, among other things. All right, so now we're going to move on to the coin of Justinian II. The Western Roman Empire fell on September 4th, 476. We got the receipts, folks. When its last emperor, Romulus Augustus, was overthrown by the Germanic warrior Odoacer. However, Julius Nepos continued to rule the Western Roman Empire until 480, when he was assassinated. He was even recognized by the Eastern Roman Empire. We're bringing receipts, folks. Share this. The Eastern Roman Emperor, Justinian II, from 669 to 711 AD, son of Constantine IV, was portrayed in coins as white, along with a white Jesus during his first reign. Because of his harsh policies, he was deposed in 695. See, these folks ain't never got along with each other. See, these folks have always been a warlike creature, always have been at war with Negroes. He was restored to the throne with the help of foreign armies in 705. Because he was still a harsh ruler, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian II was deposed for good in 711 and ultimately killed by his own military. You see what I'm saying? During his second reign, however, he appears to have had a change of heart, or at least his numismatics did, as Yeshua was depicted as a black man with curly hair. Obviously, they must have had enough evidence that proved Jesus Christ was a black man. Indeed, a lot of evidence still remained in fallen Rome itself that strongly indicates Jesus Christ and those that followed him, if I might add, the initially followers, were blacks, Christians. Now, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian II is depicted on the reverse of this solidus, minted during his second reign. Jesus Christ is depicted with curly hair displaying his black racial features. Take a close look, folks. They tell on themselves. They tell the truth. They know who we are. They know who we are. They know what's going on, and it's all about to bust loose. Coin dated from the second reign of Justinian, Jesus Christ is with curly hair. Look at that. So let's go back. Look at that. And here we go. The other side of the coin depicts Justinian II and Tiberius on the right. See, they hate Negroes because of what we represent. They hate Negroes because of who we are. And we've been who we've been since way back when. Gold solidus of Jesus Christ and Justinius II, dated from Justinius' second reign. Now Jesus Christ on the coin long as he's depicted with bearded and long hair, while Justinius is pictured standing with a crown on his head, among other things. And this dates from Justinius II's first reign, when, because of a fake image, probably the Shroud of Turin, Mandelion and Edessia imaged, it was believed that Jesus Christ could have been white. During the second reign of Justinius II, as already noted, the Byzantine Empire reversed its stance and opted for a black Jesus on the coins of Justinius II. Had he found the truth about historical black Jesus? Well, I don't know. That's who he said Jesus was during his first reign. Follow me, folks. That's who he said Jesus was on his second reign. You see why they hate us? Because they ain't us. This is why they hate us. Because they ain't us. Look at the proof. Look at it. First reign, second reign. Interesting. So, let's go to the Shroud of Turin. I'll read this last portion right here. Indeed, a number of artifacts from the Byzantine era were probably molded in the image of the Turin Shroud. The Eastern Orthodox churches also did the same, and some still continue to regard the image on the Shroud of Turin as representative of the true Christ. Now, let me tell you something, folks. All right? How does this associate itself with what's going on in today's history? Because these Ashkenazi European invaders, these occupiers in Jerusalem, who have been viciously and rightfully attacked at every turn, have ridden this lie into this future. They've taken the lie that is prescribed that Jesus is supposedly a straight-haired, blonde-haired, white being, and they've ridden it into the future to accomplish their ends, which is reason they cannot live in peace in the Middle East. The connective tissue that shows these people have always had a problem. They've always had a problem with black skin, and they associate dark skin with the Messiah. They associate dark skin with God. And they look at their white skin and they don't see God. And I don't find that odd. And so, because they can't change their skin color, they instead change history. And now we got the receipts, and it's no longer any mystery. Yeah, you knew I was going to do it. Whatever. Let's continue. So let's talk about this Shroud of Turin. You know, I remember the Shroud of Turin when I was younger. It's a fake piece of fuckery is what it is. That's it. Okay? Jesus, Yeshua, and all true Hebrews are dark-skinned Negroes. Full stop. So the depiction of the Shroud of Turin, you know, despite its fame, has absolutely nothing to do with the Hebrew name. And here are the negatives of this. And I mean, it's an interesting artifact. That's where it stops. But because it looks like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed European, all they want to do is have Jesus they're seeing, and that ain't it. Let's check out what he's got to say about this shit. One of the greatest evidence is supported of the idea that Jesus Christ was white is based on the mysterious Shroud of Turin. While the shroud linen itself may not be a fake and could even have originated from the Holy Land, the suggestion that it is Jesus Christ could be. There is no conclusive evidence that the shroud is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. The brutal Romans crucified many people, not only Yeshua. Therefore, any crucial evidence that surfaces claiming to be that of Yeshua has to be backed by indisputable facts, which is not fully convincing in this case. Yeshua has been regarded throughout history as a black man, period. Moreover, forgeries and relics and other artifacts was very common in the Middle Ages and also before that time. The Shroud of Turin is a piece of linen cloth with dimensions about 14 feet and 3.5 feet wide. There is an image of an apparently crucified man barely discernible on the shroud, naked, and with the arms covering the pelvic area. The shroud can be found in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy. According to scientists and others, no one knows for certain how the image was produced on the cloth. Let me stop there. Now, let me just tell you, your boy reads. Doug Rice reads a lot of stuff. I mean, I read. They figured out how this was done. It's not that complicated. It was using the sun. And some chemicals that they had in the time. And I'm going to say this, if I might clear my mind. The reason the Shroud of Turin was produced was to let the lie of Jesus being white let loose. That's all. So it was for the purpose to deceive. And that I thoroughly believe. In 1988, scientists from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Oxford University, as well as the University of Arizona, in a study headed by the British Museum, carried out independent carbon-14 tests at the Zurich, Oxford, and Arizona labs. Their conclusion was that it dated from the medieval ages, somewhere between 1260 and 1390. Thus, it meant that the image on the shroud could not have been that of Jesus. Now, let me stop right there and just say, before we go away, the carbon dating is also flawed. What they're using is how carbon, the molecules of carbon dissipate off any particular item at a particular rate, at a particular time, and they calculate using that carbon dissipation what they say and what they claim is that dissipation of carbon is steady over the time they're calculating. And folks, we all know there are all kinds of things that go on to our unseen eyes, things that happen with the sun. They've proven that the calculus of tree rings is more accurate than carbon dating. But again, we'll get into that some other topic we'll be relating. It was, however, said in a UK Daily Mail article dated 28 March 2013 entitled Turin Shroud Could Be from Christ's Lifetime. Infrared tests show an ancient cloth may not be a medieval fake after all. Yeah, of course. That researchers have carried out infrared testing of sample of the 14-foot linen cloth and dated the shroud about between 300 BC and 400 AD. Yeah, isn't that convenient? Padua University scientists claim that 1988 study could have been marred by fire and water damage over the centuries. Listen, folks, these folks that associate themselves with being white, because white is a construct. The folks that claim to be white people are from many different tribes, and they look fucking foolish to me and to everyone else with a brain that knows white and black people are not all the same. But these white people will go over cliffs backward, doing Greg Louganis somersaults into rocks to somehow associate themselves with that which they have no association with, and that is God Almighty. The only way they get to God these days is through Yeshua and the sacrifice he made. And that individual, just so they know, is a black person. Okay, let's go. The scientists made use of forensic science to compare fibers from the Shroud of Turin with samples of some ancient fabrics dating as far back as 3000 BC up to modern times. It has also been revealed that the sample of the cloth that was used in 1988 study was patched by nuns in 1532 to repair damage to the shroud that was caused by a fire in a chapel at Chambray when it was being kept. Folks, since 1532, they've been holding on to the fantasy that somehow Jesus is a white person. And of course, we got at that point nuns wanting to repair. You understand? Every shriveled thread, to coin this very appropriate phrase at this moment, they grasp at every thread on that shroud to associate and connect their asses with Negroes. That this is stop with the black crap. These people want to be Negroes because Negroes are God's set apart and chosen people. And if they can't be Negroes, and they sure as hell cannot, they would rather associate a patch of linen about to rot. This is ridiculous. The revelations have been included in a book entitled Il Mistero della Syndrome, The Mystery of the Shroud, and authored by the journalists Saverio Gattai and Professor Giulio Fanti, a mechanical and thermal. Of course, yeah, white people that want Jesus to be white. That's who looked at all this. White people that wanted Jesus so desperately, Jesus to be a white male from what they call the Middle East. And it's just grasping at straws, to say the very least. The new experiment was carried out by Dr. Raymond Rogers, who was one of the members of the Shroud of Turin Research Project. He believed that the carbon dating techniques used were incorrect. In 2003, he gave samples of the shroud he was given. His conclusion in 2005 was that the 1988 experiments carried out by the university labs made use of sample threads from a patch that the nuns from the medieval era used for repairs. He found the shroud dated to a much earlier period, from 1300 to 3000 years. He also believed that the blood stains on the shroud itself were real. A lot can be said about the Shroud of Turin. There's some evidence that it could date as far back as the time of Jesus, and that it even originated in the Holy Land. Some of the prominent proponents of the authenticity of the shroud claim that the blood on it is of that of type AB, which is very rare, since only about 3% of the world population has it. The supporters appear to have a very strong case that the image on the linen burial shroud mentioned in all the four Gospels is that of the real Jesus Christ. They want it so bad. According to them, so far, no one has been able to give a credible explanation as to how the image became impressed on the linen cloth. The critics, on the other hand, are adamant that the image is not that of the real Christ. We shall hear their objections later on. The shroud has a long history, but it became mostly popular from the Middle Ages. To cut a long story short, there was an exhibition of the shroud in Turin in 1898. This was to celebrate the establishment of the Italian kingdom, which had achieved its 5th anniversary. A photographer named Secondo Pio was allowed to take the first photographs of the burial cloth. The negative of the photograph in black and white revealed the image of a man that had not been seen before. The image provided a strong indication that the man had been crucified with similar wounds that had been recorded of Yeshua in the Bible. The image showed a wound in the right side, wounds in the head as if it had been caused by thorns, signs of scourging, and nail wounds in the wrists and feet. The image had over 100 wounds, most likely caused by the flagrum, the dreaded Roman whip that had multiple thongs, often 3, and had objects like lead or bone pellets affixed to the ends. The whip was a torture weapon that was designed to tear out flesh. Supporters of the shroud also claimed that there appeared to be a shoulder wound because Yeshua had to carry his cross. Also, there appeared to be knee injuries, and this was likely caused by Jesus stumbling and falling as he carried his cross. Listen up, folks. That white man on that cloth is not Yeshua. Goodness, boy, they want it so bad, don't they? What are they going to do when the Most High shows up and he is a Negro? I'm telling you, they will go mad. This is why they will fight God during Armageddon. Not just because of the new arrangement, not just because Negroes will be put back in their rightful place, hopefully never to stumble again. That's going to be a sobering day for them all. And this idiocy of them trying so desperately to be associated with that which denies their association offhand. You don't have any association with the Almighty. You have to go through Negroes. And that might be more than you can swallow. Let's continue. The proponents also claim that the man was nailed through the wrists and not through the palms, and that this was the way it was often done in the Roman world. Some authorities claim that the palms would be unable to hold the weight of an adult body. However, by nailing someone through an area of the wrist known as the space of distot, the nail or spike would be able to support the body. Furthermore, the proponents claim that unlike the two thieves whose legs were broken in order to quicken their death, the legs of the image of the shroud were not broken. And this is consistent with biblical accounts of Jesus, who'd already died before it could be done to him. The supporters of the Shroud of Turin also claim that the burial of the man in the shroud is proof of ancient Jewish burial rites. For instance, they claim that the sindum or shroud covered Jesus' entire body, and that the face cloth, the sudarium, was used in Jewish custom to cover the face of the body as a mark of respect when it was removed from the cross and was removed and placed in the tomb apart from the body. They also claim that the image also had a chin band used to keep the mouth from opening, while bandages, othniah, were used to bind the legs and wrists. They claim that evidence for all this can be found in the New Testament as well as the Mishnah. The supporters say that many credible pathologists and surgeons have confirmed that the wounds on the image are consistent with the description of the torture and death of Yeshua, as recounted in the New Testament. In this lance wound found at the right of the image, which is consistent with the Roman spear wound. However, it can be said here that what Jesus Christ went through was the standard form of Roman crucifixion, although there were different methods of crucifixion. Also, the chests of crucified people were pierced to make sure that they were dead. There are also thorn marks, which the proponents claim is unique to Jesus and no one else in the Jewish and Roman literature on crucifixion. Concerning the linen face cloth of Jesus Christ, the sudarium, the supporters have also claimed that it is known as the cloth of Oviedo, because the sudarium Christi is being kept in the northern Spain at the cathedral of Oviedo. Studies carried out by the Spanish Center for Syndiology with the use of electron microscopy and infrared and ultraviolet photography have proved that this linen cloth in the Shroud of Turin covered a partial face and that the face belongs to Yeshua. The proponents believe that the face belongs to Christ. Some believers in the authenticity of the shroud claim that the sudarium Christi was placed on Jesus' head when he died on the cross until his body was wrapped by the shroud of the tomb. After that, it was taken off and placed aside. Although the face cloth has no image, unlike the shroud, it is stained with blood and serum. A bishop of Oviedo known as Paleo had noted in his Christian Chronicles that because of the attack of the Persian king of Croesus II, the Oviedo cloth was taken out of Jerusalem in 614 AD. It arrived in Spain from North Africa and was later sent to Oviedo in a box that also included other holy items. The believers claim that the cloth was in existence as far back since 570 AD. All right, so here's what I'm getting. The cloth is a fake. They want so desperately to be associated with God. And that which is associated with God, they've treated so poorly that when God gets here, they have a price to pay. Meanwhile, all they do all day is just pretend and lie and foment the falsehood. They have nothing in them that can be associated with good. After examining all the evidence, my conclusion is that the image in the shroud is not that of the historical Jesus Christ, and it is very likely a forgery made in the Middle Ages, the old age of the linen itself notwithstanding. The forger appears to have been a person with a high IQ. He used clothing dating back to the time of Jesus Christ. Remember, these folks are nothing but deception. Their very existence in itself is a deception. So why would they not practice and foment deception? He used that clothing. The image on the shroud could have been created by the bas relief method demonstrated by Joe Nickel. This is what I was talking about. It could also have been created by photographic means, and very likely by means of a camera obscura and some chemicals. He'll explain that later. First of all, one must ask whether or not Jesus Christ was buried wrapped in a single piece of linen or several linen, as well as the face cloth. The gospel accounts are enlightening, as we shall see below. Luke says, "And behold, there was a man named Joseph, a counselor, and he was a good man and a just. The same had not been consented to the counsel indeed of them. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews. He also himself waited for the kingdom of God. This man went unto Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. And he took it down, and he wrapped it in linen and laid it in a sepulchre that was hewn in stone, wherein never man before was lain." Let me give you the bona fides on that. They cut out a rock tomb where no man had ever been laid before. We're also told in Luke 24:12, "Then arose Peter and ran until the sepulchre, and stooping down, he held the linen cloths," plural. He beheld the linen cloths, plural, laid by themselves and departed, wondering in himself at that which was to come to pass. Mark 15, "We know when even was come, and now when the even was come," when evening came, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, "Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable counselor, which also waited for the kingdom of God, came and went in boldly unto Pilate and craved the body of Jesus. And Pilate marveled at if he were already dead. And calling unto him the centurion, he asked him whether he had been any while dead. And when he knew it of the centurion, he gave the body to Joseph. And he bought fine linen, singular, and took him down, and wrapped him in the linen, which could also be plural, and laid him in a sepulchre, which was hewn out of a rock, and rolled a stone under the door of the sepulchre, sealed. When the evening was come, there came a rich man," from Matthew 27, "of Arimathea, a named Joseph, who also himself was a Jesus disciple. He went to Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be delivered. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth." Third iteration of this. "And he laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock, and he rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre and departed." John 19. "After this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Christ, but secretly for fear of the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Jesus. And there came also Nicodemus, which at first came to Jesus by night, and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, and put 100-pound weight. And then they took the body of Jesus and wound it in linen cloths and the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to be buried. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid. There laid they Jesus, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, and the sepulchre was nigh at hand." John 20. "The first of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre." So the stone was rolled from the door of the stone tomb. "Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter, to the other disciple, whom Jesus loved, and said unto him, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, and came to the tomb. So they ran both together. The other disciple ran in front of Peter, and they came first to the tomb. Stooping down, looking in, saw linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Then cometh Peter, Simon Peter followeth him, and went into the tomb, the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. All right, so they've covered several different areas of identifying what they called now the Shroud of Turin. So in all of those areas in scriptures, there they say the Shroud of Turin and the covered face cloth lay. Now, it can be argued from an analysis of the gospel accounts here that Jesus or Yeshua was buried in one or more pieces of clothing. In some of the gospel accounts, too, one angel was present, while in others, two were present. Thus, both the proponents and the critics can score a point based on the accounts. What one may rely on is the statement that Yeshua was buried in the manner of the Jews. How were the Jews buried in the time of Jesus Christ? The bodies were washed and spices were applied. Thus, some have said that there could not have been blood on the shroud because of the absence of blood. Some pathologists have claimed that washing the blood could have reopened clotted wounds and more bleeding would have been resolved. What? Good Lord. Others maintain that the application of spices could have stopped the blood flows. However, even this is a murky and dangerous area to rely on with certainty. Lazarus in the Bible was also buried in the manner of the Jews. John 11, Jesus said, "Take ye away the stone." Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, "Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days." Jesus said unto her, "Said I not unto thee that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God?" Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me." And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. And Jesus saith unto them, "Loose him and let him go." And then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. So, if Yeshua was buried like Lazarus, then there was every indication that Yeshua was wrapped in different pieces of linen, in addition to the face cloth. In that case, the Shroud of Turin was not used to bury the historical Christ. The early Christians of Rome made a fresco of Jesus Christ, raising Lazarus from the dead as shown. Look at that. Look at that. That looked like a brother to me. I don't know. They made a fresco. The fresco has been dated as far back as the 3rd century. Right about that time, boy, the 3rd, 4th century, that's when they wanted to change Jesus from being a brother to being a white dude. Very interesting. Although there are other frescoes of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead, the ancient date as well as the apparent attention to detail means that the painters were in touch with reality. It looks like the body of Lazarus has been wrapped with strips of linen. His head has not been wrapped. Yeshua appears to have the face cloth on a wand. This means that the ancient Jews were buried as indicated in the Bible with strips of linen and a face cloth. But then your guess is as good as mine. This above here, that's a mosaic from the Church of San Apollinare, Nove Ravenna, Italy. Here it can be seen that, look closely, as more non-blacks converted to Christianity, they made the biblical characters look more like themselves. This image was made a couple of centuries later than the other one. So as you can see, he's right. Here in about the 3rd century, they're staying true to form. Yeshua is depicted as dark-skinned, a Negro, a black person in their mind. Here as we move forward in time, they more and more want to associate, themselves with Yeshua. So they become more and more white at this point. So I'm not saying the shroud linen is fake. It's more likely as old as the time Jesus Christ lived, and it probably did originate from the Holy Land. The creator of the image would not have used linen cloth belonging to his era, as he was obviously not stupid. In addition, the linen cloth still exists centuries older than the time Jesus lived. It would have been possible for the creator of the shroud to have laid hands on an ancient linen from the Holy Land and carried out the forgery. Medieval Europeans had knowledge of the sort of crucifixion that Jesus Christ was subjected to, even though there were different types of crucifixion. Even though the Eastern Roman Emperor Constantine abolished crucifixion, it was still practiced by some groups against criminals. For instance, thus, knowledge of the crucifixion is practiced at the time of Jesus was still available. Moreover, one could peruse the available literature on the subject even then. Experts like Walter McCrone believe that the material on the shroud is not blood, and that the images on the shroud were made by red iron oxide earth pigments. As expected, he has faced strong criticism for his belief. McCrone claimed to have taught an expert portrait artist from Chicago, William Sanford, how to paint shrouds with good quality 3D and negative images. The Shroud of Turin has been found to have 3D properties. The principles of photography were known by some learned men in antiquity, and the camera obscura existed a very long time ago. The Arabic physicist, mathematician, and astronomer Ibn al-Haytham has shown in his 7-volume book on optics, which translated from Arabic to Latin, that even during his era, the principles of photography were known. Silver bromide could have been used in creating images. Alhazen carried out experiments with images from the pinhole. He is said to have invented a pinhole camera. The camera obscura is a photographic device that has influenced the camera and photography. It is made a darkened room or box that has a hole in one of the sides. Light from the outside can pass through the hole and reflect on an inside surface, thereby allowing reproduction to take place. The resulting image can be reproduced on a piece of paper. The Chinese philosopher Mozi is believed to have mentioned the principles of the camera obscura. Others with an understanding of the theories of the camera obscura include Euclid. The Byzantine mathematician Amphimaeus of Tralla made a use of the camera obscura. It is also possible that the ancient Egyptians and other cultures had knowledge of the camera obscura. The Moors and Arabs also had knowledge of the camera obscura. They were erudite in diverse subjects, and they greatly influenced some of the best minds of Europe like Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci. Indeed, Leonardo da Vinci was aware of Alhazen's experiments, and later on, he published a description of the camera obscura in his 12-volume Codex Atlanticus. A UK newspaper article was Turin Shroud Faked by Leonardo da Vinci, dated 2009, has claimed that the face in the shroud is that of Leonardo da Vinci and that it was probably projected on the cloth. Lillian Schwartz, an American graphic consultant at the School of Visual Arts in New York, made use of the computer scans to prove that the dimensions of the shroud's face is the same as that of Leonardo da Vinci, according to the Telegraph newspapers. The claim would be revealed in a forthcoming documentary. Lillian Schwartz is noted for her Leonardo da Vinci theory. She compared Leonardo da Vinci's self-portrait with the 16th century Mona Lisa painting, revealing that the Mona Lisa is partly da Vinci. Interesting. Some even claim that it is modeled on one of his male lovers. In fact, he kept the Mona Lisa painting until his death. According to Lillian Schwartz, it matched. There is no doubt in my mind the proportions that Leonardo da Vinci wrote about were used in creating the shroud's face. Interesting. Telegraph's article also claims that Leonardo da Vinci could have scorched his facial image to the shroud with the use of a camera obscura. According to the newspaper in the forthcoming program, it would be shown that there was a possibility of the cloth being hanged on a frame in a darkened room and then coated with silver sulfate, which was widely available in the 15th century. The substance would have made it light sensitive to the sun's rays. With the passing of the sun's rays through lens embedded in one of the walls, Da Vinci's facial features would have been impressed on the shroud. The newspaper claims that Professor Nicholas Allen, an art historian at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in South Africa, said as follows: "If you look at the Shroud of Turin as it appears to the naked eye, you see a negative image of a human being, which means the shroud is acting as a negative. That in itself is a very good clue that it was made photographically." According to the article, the program would explain that Leonardo da Vinci was commissioned to forge a more convincing version of the shroud as a substitute for an earlier version that was not convincing enough to be accepted as authentic and had been bought by the influential Savoy family in 1453, then disappeared for 50 years. It was later exposed to the public and was considered to be authentic, but the later version was Da Vinci's forgery. I knew they were going somewhere with this. I knew it. It is possible that the image on the shroud was created long before the birth of Leonardo da Vinci. This is because some of the sources claim that the face on the shroud has been very accurately depicted on carvings, icons, and coins from about 532. What is certain is that the image on the shroud is a fake made with the use of photographic or other techniques. Now, the reason I went through every last bit of that is so that you understood the sinister plot to change from black to white. Those people that represent God Almighty started right there. It took its turn, and that's the reason they were spending so much time on this topic, on the shroud. Because the Shroud of Turin is like the catalyst. It's like the touchstone that really put in the minds of not only the Europeans, but those around them, that Jesus Christ, that Yeshua was a white man. And Jesus Christ and Yeshua was not a white man. He was a Negro. He was a black man. If you check out some of the photos, here we have depictions. And that's an illustration from a manuscript where they really began this use of proclaiming whiteness associated with being of God. Now I got a few more to go. I'm going to continue with this series. I'm going to try to finish this up. The above illustrations from the Hungarian Prey manuscript, which was written between 1192 and 95. This was centuries before the birth of Leonardo da Vinci. The Hungarian Prey manuscript is also known as the Prey Codex or the Codex Prey. It can be found in the Budapest National Library. One of the illustrations depicts a scene similar to the Shroud of Turin and even has a similar poker holes or burnt marks like the ones on the shroud. It also has a 3-to-1 herringbone pattern, which indicated high-quality cloths in ancient times. However, it can be speculated that the image on which this drawing was based was of such poor quality and an obvious fake that centuries afterwards, Leonardo da Vinci or someone else came out with a more convincing image. All right, so Michelangelo. And again, folks, this rather long video, longer than I thought it would be, concerns with how Jesus Christ became white. It is imperative that we look into these things deeply because they serve as a linchpin, a connector between then and now. Right now, millions upon people believe Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah, to be white, and they've predicated all they've done on that notion. And this is an absolute fact. The state of Israel exists because they believe Jesus is white. The Catholic Church exists because they believe Jesus is white. The colonization of Africa exists because they believe Jesus is white. And this delved into that particular section, that Shroud of Turin. That shroud is a linchpin. It's like they tried to create it like a photograph. Now let's go to the last part, Michelangelo. One of the major reasons the image of Jesus Christ was changed from black to white was due to some of Michelangelo's paintings. He was given a contract on 10 May 1508 by Pope Julius II to paint the Sistine Chapel. He used members of his family as models. For instance, his cousin was the model for Jesus Christ. What? The paintings were carried out between 1508 and 1512. Folks, I wish I could enlarge that because it's an abomination. It's a white fantasy of all God's creation, nothing but white people. And as reflective in nature as it is, we must assume that everything associated with God is black and dark, and everything associated with Satan and evil is white. Yeah, I said it. So there's a photo. Look at this. Michelangelo's creation of Adam. So Adam was created by a white man, and it clearly says that the creator has skin of burnt bronze and hair of wool. That don't look like burnt bronze or wool. Here's a picture. He's painted Jesus. Look at that. Look at these crazed beings. And we wonder why we see what we're seeing. Caesar Borgia, perhaps the most popular image of Jesus Christ worship throughout the world today, is one based on the paintings of Caesar Borgia. I call him bourgeois. The popular image of Jesus Christ worship today is based on that. The portrait on the left is said to have been made by Altobello Malone, is considered by tradition to be that of Caesar Borgia. There he is. The guy on the left, Caesar Borgia. The guy on the right, Caesar Bourgeois. I call him Borgia. It's Borgia, I know. Here's another 16th century painting of Caesar Borgia in Rome. The famous author Alexandre Dumas has claimed that some of the depictions of Jesus Christ were based on the image of Caesar Borgia, and that this has greatly impacted how Jesus Christ has been viewed since then. Leonardo da Vinci was employed by Caesar Borgia for about a year to work as an engineer and military architect. And there were rumors that they had a homosexual relationship. There ain't no damn rumors. They're white men. Caesar's father, Cardinal Rogero dell'Angelo Borgia, later became Pope Alexander VI. The Borgia family originally came from Spain. Caesar Borgia was one of Pope Alexander's illegitimate sons with his mistress, Vanazza Catania. While still a teenager, he became the Archbishop of Valencia as well as a pastor. He was an evil man at heart. He was sexually and morally depraved and yearned for power. This murderous man and womanizer was said to have contracted syphilis. This is their Jesus. This is their Christ. In 1496, he was put in charge of the papal army by his father. That sexually depraved, morally. Do you understand? And the shit just keeps happening. You got Fred Trump. He produced some sexually depraved, morally depraved womanizer. And they keep reproducing one another. That's the reason judgment is coming. After his father's death, however, the cardinals made Julius II Pope. Oh, dear God. The new pope was an established enemy of the Borgia family. Machiavelli was inspired by Caesar Borgia and portrayed him in his book, The Prince. The metamorphosis of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua, from black to white started not long after other races embraced Christianity. It was inspired by a long desire to belong, and was also due to racism, especially in later times. And that's the end of the book. All right. So There we go. I've read the whole damn thing and I'm on time. How Jesus Became White. That's the name of this book. We've gone through every bit of it, and I was glad to take a look. All right, folks, we've been on the air now for an hour, 19 minutes. I appreciate your time. I wanted to go through all of that and get in a little rhyme. Tomorrow we'll go over something else, but just remember, this is all connective tissue. Now, I know the Shroud of Turin was a long-winded portion of the reading, but there's a reason they stuck on that. They wanted that false item to connect themselves to that which they have no connection to, and that is the holiness of God Almighty that belongs to me and you. All right, I gotta go. I think this was a good show. And remember, folks, as long as you're trying to stay in their good graces, get that goddamn grin off your faces. Has shocked you.